Howdy, boys and girls. Welcome back to the Carla and Crappy Show. I am Crappy. I'm in Pittsburgh. I'm doing very well. Thank you. I appreciate you asking. That's Carla down there in Nashville.
Hello.
Carla, how are you?
Surviving, hanging in. It's all good.
Surviving, hanging in. I understand Carla had a busy day, so that's um, I. It's always awesome to see her, and I appreciate the
And
smiling
we apparently
face.
decided to match tonight. We both got the memo to wear black, but
Yeah, very nice. I don't have a
but
Carla. I don't have show logoed stuff yet. I still
I
need to.
know.
I still
I
need to.
figured I might actually wear this on campus tomorrow. My students don't know this yet, but like it's supposed to be kind of like rainy and chilly, and
Mhm.
so part of me is like
Perfect.
I'm gonna totally like rock my new Carla and Crappy Show hoodie tomorrow, I think.
Nice.
Because it's
Nice.
super soft. I love it.
We are okay. Okay. We are still hoping you guys to have merch available here sometime soon. AJ is not with us this week. He is driving back from the wilds of the lower peninsula of Michigan, um, and getting food at Culver's, which I have never done. I don't know. I know Carla was teasing the two of us. And she's like, "Oh, I drive by Culver's all the time," which I was actually
Yeah.
surprised about because I thought it was more of a Midwestern thing.
Yeah, no, we've got a couple of locations here in Middle
Okay,
Tennessee, and one of them is in Murfreesboro. And I
nice.
drive past it on my way to school every day. Um, but yeah, no, it's worth it for the custard, like because I'm a
Mm,
frozen custard girl, right? Because
mm.
Western PA, you all know Hanks. You all know Hanks
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
in Conneaut Lake, the original Hanks, up there. And so like that's a must stop for me when I go home
Hmm.
every year is to swing through Conneaut Lake to go to Hanks, and then go next door to Eddie's and get an Eddie's footlong hot dog and a Hanks frozen custard. Like
Ooh,
that's the yeah, that's
ooh,
the combo
okay.
right there. So make a trip to Conneaut Lake next summer and do that. It's good.
Hmm.
Um,
All right.
but yeah, I'm a frozen custard girl.
Okay.
So any chance I have to hit a frozen custard stand, I'm in, and that's what Culver's is. So,
Very
um,
nice.
yeah, definitely there for dessert. The food's fine. It's not, it's fine for what it is, but
Hmm.
like it's all about the frozen custard.
Okay. Okay. That's fair. It is we are recording on Tuesday as we usually do. There is MACtion on right now. Ball State
Yes,
and Buffalo may break 80 points before this game is over, which is just peak MACtion. That is how this
it
goes.
is.
Um, we also, in speaking with you about Murfreesboro, we always start the show by looking back at last weekend. We're not going to start with games this time. We're going to talk to you about your experience on at doing the Middle Tennessee's CUSA preview show. And
Yeah.
remind me what it was called. What the show's called?
Blue Raider Extra Point.
Yes, yes. Um, we got to watch Carla on the big TV. Not that you can't do that with this show, but it was live television, streamed from the Grove on Middle's campus.
Hmm.
Um, she had a good crew. You had a good crew with you.
I
Um,
did.
the kid, I thought that especially the kid who was sitting next to you, and I did not catch name, but he seemed very, very good. I know you had to get up and crack it on. Um,
Yes.
tell me how your morning went. How did that go?
It was a lot of fun. It
Hmm?
really was. So got onto campus and immediately went over to the Grove as they were setting things up. And it's funny because see, that's actually, being a sports producer was what I went to school for. It's actually how
Hmm?
AJ and I originally met back in the day.
Right.
I was the sports producer, and so watching all this brought back some really great and stressful memories. Um, Especially, I was stressed out over what I was going to wear, and then I get there, and they actually had finished making that desk the night before. Um,
Nice.
the paint had actually dried and they were able to bring it over. Although there was apparently some late screwing of some pieces down at the bottom that
Okay.
resulted in some injuries. I'm not going to get into any of that, but that was a thing that happened. Um,
Jeez.
but then,
Okay.
like all the fun stuff is like, your 35 minutes to air.
Hmm.
And there's so much stuff going on in the Grove that everything is timed down to the minute. Like
Hmm.
we absolutely had to start at 9 o'clock Central, to be able to be done by 9:28 Central
Hmm.
because the band of blue was going to be rounding the corner into the Grove at 9:29 a.m. to
That
begin
tight.
a
Okay.
9:35 set,
Okay.
right where we were. So
Hmm.
they use the staircase of the place where we were set up
Right.
as part of their staging. So we had to be out at 9:28, absolutely not a second later. Um, and of course at like 8:15 in the morning, the sun is hitting just right.
Hmm.
And so we were literally jerry rigging tarps to
Yeah.
help block because we were getting
I saw
really
that.
badly backlit.
Hmm.
So I'm sure you saw the tarp
Hmm.
behind Dylan's head, and that was there because we were having a hard time with the sun was just at the wrong angle. And I won't even describe how we got that tarp hung. It probably would it be like an OSHA violation at this point of the number of things that we stacked together and sent a kid up with a bunch of clamps and said, go for it. And I backed away, was like, I am not going to be held liable if this goes terribly wrong.
It's
um,
like I'm not the faculty member in charge here. No,
I am not the
no.
faculty member in charge. I am the guest picker, and that is my total role here. But no, kudos to the entire team. There were probably 16 or 17 students total working on this thing, not,
Hmm.
including the three that were on the air. Dylan, Evan, and Jacob did a really great job. They were a lot of fun to work with.
Hmm.
We got a partial dry run, and then we had to do it. And literally we ended right at 9:28, and literally we went off the air, and here comes the band of blue. You could not have timed it any better.
Nice.
It was really timed down to the minute. So it was a lot of fun. I know we had some audio troubles
Hmm. Hmm.
early on, and they were working really hard to troubleshoot it, but kudos to everybody involved. It was a lot of fun. And then
Excellent.
yes, I got to walk around the party in the Grove wearing my Yay Feetball shirt, and people going, "Does that
Mhm.
say Yay Feetball?" I was like, "Yes, it
Yay.
definitely says Yay Feetball."
Feet ball?
So
Feet ball? That's from a viewer standpoint, it was fantastic. The I texted you something about the audio problem. Is
hmm
the guy the guy who was actually hosting um it sounded like his mic was really hot or there was a bad connection or something. So but that got fixed.
It did.
Uh I missed the very tail end of the show because YouTube cut it off. I am guessing
Yeah.
because someone at YouTube assumed there was a problem with rights. I don't know that for sure, and I don't know if you heard anything about that or not. Um, I did go back because the whole show's on YouTube now, and I have gone back
Yeah.
and watched all your predictions. And Carla, of course, was as polished, maybe even more so than you are on this show, where we don't really have to be. And we
Yeah.
don't really have time limits or marks to hit or anything at all like that. So it was really well done. And this it's as someone who's been in journalism for a long time, I say this a lot, and it's dumb for me to get excited when you're in media and you have friends in media. It's dumb for me to get excited to see my friends doing stuff in media, but I almost always do. I
hmm
almost always like, oh crap, there's Carla on my TV. It's on Saturday morning.
Yep.
I think the only thing that could have made it better was like a headgear pick. That would be the
Yeah.
only I would urge the young men and women who are behind the production at Middle Tennessee State get some headgear involved here. I mean, of course it's going to be done here soon. Anyway, we need someone to step up and fill that void. And I think Carla, you're as good as anybody to do it.
Well, and you know what? What you didn't see was how hard it was to keep that candle lit.
Yeah.
Because the
Okay.
wind was blowing too, and so the whole process of trying to keep the candle lit for the
Mhm.
for the flames gimmick at the end there,
Yes.
that was hilarious to watch, and I was having a really hard time not laughing watching
Okay.
the kid who was trying to keep the candle from getting blown out before he put it on the set. So yeah,
Hmm.
good. It was a good time all the way around. So.
Very
And thanks
nice.
to everybody who involved in that for inviting me on. It was a great experience, and who knows, maybe we'll get to do it again next year. We'll see.
That's awesome. And that you got the recognition and did so well on the show got mentions in this, and this is very cool. It's really cool to start my Saturday football watching. There were games last week. I don't know
There
what
were.
you there were a few. I don't know what you managed to get a look at. I know I have a couple notes, but what did you see last week that stuck out to you?
Well, I didn't. I will be perfectly honest and say
Mhm.
that I didn't totally see a ton of stuff because,
Mhm.
with an alarm going off at 5 a.m. on Saturday, I was a little tired by the time the afternoon rolled around.
I bet.
Um, and so I was doing some other things, but I obviously was scoreboard watching and I was grabbing stuff when I could and doing the best that I could there. This is a really dumb week for AJ not to be here because AJ, you were right. Miami finally foed.
They did. You can
AJ, we
only
miss you.
you can only FA so much before you FO,
Yeah.
and it finally got him.
You can only fa for so long
Yeah.
before you fo.
Fa
Fa
la
la la
la
la
la
la la
la
la
la
la
la la
fo.
fo.
And Miami did. And like we were texting during that game, and none of us was convinced that that was actually going to happen until the game was actually over
Hmm.
because Miami has found ways to weasel their way
Yep.
out of foeing situations, and they didn't this time. Um, that one had my spidey senses raised because Georgia Tech is that team this year, right? There
Hmm.
are certain teams we're going to talk
Hmm.
about some of them this week that they're the teams that just like to meddle, right?
Yeah.
They're not really necessarily going to like play for a conference title or really play a substantial role, but man, do they like to mess things up.
Hmm.
Georgia Tech is consistently that team in the ACC, and they did it again this year. Speaking of meddling, the Big 12 buffet was as advertised last weekend.
Oh man.
We got some good stuff out of the Big
Yes,
12.
we did.
Kansas,
Hmm.
Kansas,
Hmm.
knocking off Iowa State. Iowa State now has lost two straight, and whoo boy, I couldn't stay up. I didn't even make it to like halftime of the primetime games. That's how
Uh-huh.
tired I was by the time
Hmm.
Saturday night rolled around. But man, I was reading up stuff on the Holy War.
Hmm.
They might rename that the Holding War next year.
That could be. That's
Yeah,
it would be apt.
that would be apt. But man, BYU escaped one that maybe they shouldn't have.
Hmm.
Um, so although you say that, Utah was held scoreless in the second half. If you really want to win that football game, you got to put up points in the second half, Utes.
Yep.
So, um, so Big 12 lived up to expectations. Bama continues to just like not lose to LSU.
Hmm.
Like it's hard to win in Death Valley at night. Um,
No big deal.
yeah, no big deal. Bama doing Bama things, and suddenly we're like, okay, is Bama the team in the SEC? Because Georgia,
Hmm.
hello,
Hmm.
tap tap tap, hello, anybody in there? I
No.
we'll talk more about Georgia here towards the end of the show, but
Yeah.
like I don't get them this year.
No.
I don't know if
I don't
anybody
either.
gets them this year.
I don't. I
Um,
get the feeling that Kirby does not.
yeah. Yeah, it's just bizarre what's happening in Athens this year. Um, so this week's game is gonna be really intriguing.
Hmm.
And then of course the sad news from the Borough, we had a great start to the Grove, and it was a good party in the
Yep.
Grove, and all kinds of fun stuff happening. And then of course, Liberty, in fact, does not have the yips. They were they were exceptionally dominant in Murfreesboro, and unfortunately, the sad news is that takes the Blue Raiders out of bowl eligibility for the
Yep.
second year in a row.
Yep.
We will not be bowling in Murfreesboro, but hey, Jacksonville State pulled a miracle rabbit out of a hat
Hmm.
to beat Louisiana Tech in overtime after getting the Hail Mary at the end of the game, forcing overtime and then winning it in OT. So hey, I went 3-1 on my picks, so I guess I'm
Hmm.
okay in that in my CUSA picks.
Hmm.
But yeah, just kind of an up and down weekend, all kinds of weird stuff happening. What all did you catch? Because I'm sure you were a little more glued to your TV
I
than I
was able to
was.
watch
Yeah.
a little bit more. You guys will recall that last week, I was actually looking at the fun index for Army at North Texas and thinking if they get to 64 points, that is not good for Army. Um, Army starting quarterback did play. Army remained undefeated in a game, and I did not write down the final score, but it was in the neighborhood of like 14-7. Um,
Hmm.
it was not the score fest, and that was a good thing for Army, a good sign for Army. So they held on to their undefeated season, and they get to enjoy a bye week this week. Um, you guys will also recall that I mentioned I was willing you all to watch Ohio University on Wednesday. Not that they really needed the help; they were playing at Kent, and they buried the Golden Flashes. Excellent defense, two special teams touchdowns, and they're still in a four-way tie for first in the MAC. So, couple big games coming up, including another one tomorrow. Not for you guys, but for Carla and
Right.
me and AJ. It is tomorrow. I will reminding. I'm going to send you the mental reminder again at the end of this show, so you will be compelled at around 7 o'clock next tomorrow, Wednesday, when you are wondering what happened on Wednesday that made you want to watch MAC football. It was me.
It was you.
I did get to see much of Penn State's win over Washington. That was Washington did not put up a whole lot of a fight, and
Yeah.
part of that was maybe Penn State's creative play calling in goal line situations. I'm not sure, Carla, if you were happy about that or angrier or what your reaction would be, but they got down to the goal line and there's the tight end who's running the ball. I don't think he threw, maybe he did. I'm not I don't recall. Um but there's the creativity that was missing from
Yeah.
Penn State's play calling the week before. So it exists. That's the good news. Um I think it serves to emphasize AJ's point that about head coaches calling plays scared.
Hmm.
And it did not seem like that with Penn State beating Washington. Um, Indiana got its win over Michigan at home, but I wonder, was the Hoosiers offense exposed a little bit, just 20 points, and 246 total yards against a defense that hasn't has been okay this season in Michigan. Um, hasn't been as good as Ohio State's. And that's something we're going to talk about more uh, next week.
Yeah.
Kind of a big game coming there. Um, I have to let you guys know what's going on with the Carnegie Mellon. They buried Allegheny 63-10 on Senior Day. The Tartans wrap up their regular season with the annual Academic Bowl at rival Case Western. Um, I think they need help to win the conference, but there's a decent chance that they would get an at-large bid, even if they don't win the President's Athletic Conference, to get themselves into the D3 playoffs. So we'll see how that works out. And then finally, my Buckeyes. I said I wanted a blowout. I got one.
Yes, you
Um,
did.
I won. It's a 45-0. Um, I might spoiler alert, Carla, because Penn State plays at Purdue this week. Penn State's awful. Purdue is awful. Excuse me. Um,
Yeah.
Purdue is not good. So you take the numbers and the score and any of that stuff with a grain of salt. But Will Howard had a great day. Three touchdowns, ran for another. Um, the team had a total 173 yards rushing. I think that's good. I would like to see over 200 yards. But another step towards consistency. Um, Jeremiah Smith became Ohio State's all-time freshman leader in receptions and touchdown catches, sliding past people like Chris Carter. So that's pretty good company. Um, the defense, interesting things. They blitz more against Purdue than they have any other team all season. In about 60% of the snaps were blitzes, and that's something I read in the Athletic. They also ran stuff out of Jim Knowles' jack formation, which is a three down lineman and kind of a fourth rover who blitzes from a number of different places along the line. Um, Not such a good defense against the run, and Purdue actually uh, exploited that a few times on one drive in particular, but it's got to be a nightmare if you're trying to throw the ball and you don't know where that fourth guy is coming from. So interesting that there is stuff for the offensive coaches at Indiana and Michigan and whoever else might be down the line to think about. Don't know if we'll see it again, but a fun game to watch, and I was pleased with how things are coming along. As we said, AJ is not with us live. He is in fact driving in his car at this very moment. But he is with us as usual in his pre-recorded through the miracle of digital audio recordings. With this week's Group of Five After Dark report. AJ, go.
The highways and byways of greater America, more specifically Western Michigan. It's your Group of Five After Dark report. We're starting on Friday night at 8 p.m. I'm sorry, MACtion. I love you, but this comes out after that. And we're not going to, we can just make some generic predictions. The good teams will probably win and the bad teams won't. So there, done. MACtion complete. We're starting though on 8 p.m. on Friday night in the American Conference. We have your North Texas Mean Green heading to San Antonio to play the UTSA Roadrunners. The fun index is a proper 72 points. North Texas is favored by 2. Neither of these teams plays defense. Just full stop. Do not play defense. This is going to be a wild point affair. This is on ESPN 2. So you can watch this, just on Friday night. Keep things moving in your evening. I do want to point out a game in the Mountain West on Friday night as well on CBSSN, the Network of Champions. Wyoming at Colorado State. Colorado State's favored by 10. Wyoming is not very good this year. But one thing no one is paying attention to is Colorado State is undefeated in conference. And they don't play Boise before the end of the season because Mountain West, much like other conferences, got rid of their divisions too. So they play, Colorado State, to be specific, plays Wyoming, Fresno State, and Utah State. That is the bottom chunk of the Mountain West Conference. So there is a high likelihood that Colorado State shows up in the Mountain West Championship as an undefeated in-conference team at 9-3. That's bananas. By the way, if they beat Boise, there's going to be some feelings. If they were to make it to the championship game and then beat Boise, there will be feelings. And I don't know that Boise will stay in the top 12 if they lose their championship game to Colorado State. But that's a game to keep an eye on. That's actually a really fun rivalry. Wyoming, Colorado State, that goes back way, way long time. So keep an eye on that. Could be fun. On Saturday at noon in the American Conference, Tulane at Navy on ESPN2. Banger alert. Banger alert. Tulane is 8-2. Navy is 7-2. This game is effectively for the right to play Army in the ACC championship game. Obviously, there's other games. They both have the chance to lose other games. Tulane's remaining schedule is at Navy and then home versus Memphis. Navy's remaining schedule is Tulane and East Carolina. So if whoever wins this game has an incredibly high likelihood of playing Army in the ACC championship game. And to be entirely honest here, I love you, Wave. I love you so much. I need an Army Navy ACC or AAC championship game. I truly believe this in my soul that that's what needs to happen here. So Tulane, I'm not saying roll over. Do not roll over for the troops. The troops are prepared. But I need a better Navy to show up this week than has shown up in the past few weeks. Otherwise, this is going to get real messy real fast for the boats. Waves versus boats, just throwing that out there. Waves usually win when a big enough wave comes at them. Just throwing that out there. But that's absolutely a game you should keep your eye on. Do not watch Ohio State or Northwestern. You don't need to do that. You can watch Tulane Navy. That's also on at the same time. We go now to the Sun Belt at 1 p.m. We've got Coastal Carolina traveling to Huntington, West Virginia to play Marshall. If you said to Coastal Carolina at the start of the season you're going to be 5-4 and fighting for bowl eligibility, not where the shots wanted to be. But here they are. And Marshall, 6-3. I don't think 6-3 is where they wanted to be either. I think Marshall wanted to be, a 9-3 team at the end of the season. I think they were a 10-2 team, and they dropped a couple games. Obviously, losing by a lot to Ohio State, nothing to shake a stick at. I don't think anybody would be mad about that one. Losing by a lot to Virginia Tech, not what you want to do. And then losing at home, or losing at Georgia Southern is not what you want to do in the Sun Belt either. So I think this is a little bit of a disappointing year for Marshall. I think they can pull it together. I think they beat Coastal Carolina here. But they finished the season with Coastal Carolina, ODU, and JMU. Uh, Not what you want to finish your season with if you're looking to not have it end on a disappointment. So I think Marshall gets it done here, but I think they're looking ahead to JMU. We now go to where do we want to go here? We can go right here and stay in the Mountain West. Hawaii at Utah State at 3 p.m. We have an Eastern Time daylight Hawaii game. I don't like it. I don't like this at all. This is this feels wrong. This feels immoral. I feel like I'm doing something dirty. This game is at 3 p.m. This is on Spectrum pay-per-view. This one might be on the Mountain West. Keep an eye on themw.com. That might be on there, but Team One Sports Spectrum pay-per-view app is where this will likely be. I will be watching this game. Just throwing that out there because it's Hawaii and it's in the daytime. Hawaii is 4-6, and they play Utah State and they play New Mexico to end the year. And there is a distinct possibility that Hawaii can get bowl eligible. Utah State, not very good. This is off the island, to be clear, but I think they can get it done against Utah State, and then they play Saturday, November 30th against New Mexico at home. That's going to be a points fest. Just throwing that out there. But I think Hawaii gets it done here to make it so that the New Mexico game is for bowl eligibility. Timmy Chang, take them to the promised land, baby. We are going to go down to uh, that's an interesting one. Saturday, 3:30 in the ACC. You've got Boston College going to Dallas to play SMU. SMU's favored by 17. I don't know why. Spidey senses tingled when I saw this game. This feels like one of those games where SMU just has a no good, very bad day. I'm not wishing that upon SMU. I'm just saying that it's possible. And if they do and they lose to Boston College, their hopes and dreams in the ACC die. However, I believe that is part of the ACC chaos scenario where we get all 6-2 teams. What we're going for here. So somebody's got to lose. Maybe BC is the one that gets it done. I don't know. At 7 p.m. on Saturday, we have Boise State going to San Jose State. Boise State, obviously 8-1 with their only loss to Oregon. They are ranked number 12 in the college football playoff. I don't think that's a 12. I don't think 12 is where they stay. I think they move up. I do think they're going to be like a 10 seed when it's all said and done. But they're playing San Jose State in the Bay Area. I'm interested to see how this goes. San Jose State has played really, really well this year. They're not great on offense. They're 61st in points scored, and 126th in rushing yards, and 72nd fifth in passing yards. San Jose State, coached by Kenny Amanalolo, one of the option coach greats, is throwing the ball like crazy. It's a weird world we live in now. But I think the bigger thing here is they have a pretty good defense. They are in range with Boise defensively. They do give up a lot of total yards, but they give up a lot of yards, excuse me, in rushing yards. And I think this is an Ashton Jeanty game where he goes off for a whole lot and reminds people that he is the best running back in the country. But again, keep an eye on this game just because San Jose State is not the bottom half of the Mountain West. They are in the upper crust for sure this year. Um, I think it's time though. Oh, sorry. One more game before we get out of here, or before we go to our how the Big 12 will eat itself this week. Washington State at 8-1 going to New Mexico, 9:30 p.m. on FS1. Washington State favored by 12.5. Your fun index is also a proper 72. Devin Dampier is the quarterback for New Mexico. Get familiar with him because he is so goddamn fun to watch. He plays backyard football. He is just a delight. And you have John Mateer on the other side, who is fully capable of running for 200 yards and passing for 200 yards in the same game. This is going to be pointsy and fun. Put this on your TV. Let the mountains of New Mexico wash over you, and may it be good for you. But let's take a look at the Big 12 because the Big 12 has a lot going on. Um, the big one that is staring me in the face is Utah, Colorado at noon. This is the big nude game. This is a noon game in Colorado, which means this is a 10 a.m. kickoff. Fox, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? You know who's up at 10 a.m.? Mormons. That's who. Except that's BYU. Crap, I messed that up. Sorry, Utah fans. I know you're real mad that you lost that game in unbelievable fashion. Don't hate me for that. But Utah showed a lot of fight against BYU. They really took it to BYU, and honestly, should have won that game. That was definitely defensive holding. It usually doesn't get called. This time it did. Sorry. And the Utah AD is a bit of a dork for whining after the game about the call and to the official's face while he was trying to make the game-ending call. Just throwing that out there. But this feels like a trap game for Colorado. Utah shows up not looking very good. Colorado has looked honest to God stout. They are not the Colorado you think they are. They have a bit of a defensive line. They have dudes. They have the ability to get goal line stands. This is not last year's Colorado. This is interesting. Keep an eye on this one. Carla and Crappy will talk about this one later. But Arizona State at Kansas State at 7 p.m. on ESPN. Sure. I'm interested to see if Cam Scatabo plays entirely because Cam Scatabo needs to he needs to be on the field for Arizona State in order for them to potentially win a game here. Kansas State plays a really tough set of football. Arizona State is fully capable of also playing a tough set of football. But I'm interested to see if Cam Scatabo plays, this gets more interesting. But I think K-State minus 9.5 is there for a reason. Kansas at BYU at 10:15 p.m. on ESPN. BYU, I just need you to know you got away with one. And this week you're favored by 3 at home. There are a lot of people, including the playoff committee, who I think have BYU on fraud watch. And this is where they either need to show up and like put away a Kansas team that just knocked off Iowa State and can play really well. They played the game that we all thought they would play all year with Jalen Daniels last week. Can they do it again? And can they do it in Provo with a hot BYU crowd that is going to want to, get this would be a 10th win for BYU. BYU is in the driver's seat for the Big 12. There is no doubt about that in my mind. They have Kansas, Arizona State, and Houston. BYU at Arizona State next week could be a banger. They finish at home versus Houston. I think they need to get through Kansas this week and then get get past Arizona State, and they walk their way into the Big 12 title game and likely the playoff. This has been your Group of Five After Dark report. On the highways of America, we see a lot of journeys, and this college football season has been a weird journey. It's not going the way everybody expected it to. We're seeing a lot of different teams having chances. There is a likely potential that you get 2 G5 teams in the playoff, and maybe a P4 conference champion doesn't make it. That's plausible. The sport is getting weird in a good way. It's changing in a weird way. And I'm interested to see where things go from here. Carla, Crappy, back to you.
Thank you, AJ. I know we're gonna talk about some of the games that you talked about, but especially given our focus on the Big 12 buffet, and how those guys are eating each other, eating themselves. There are many opportunities for that this weekend, and we're going to talk about a few of them. This week's big boy games, there are a couple legit big ones. It's all kind of about positioning, with many of the games that we're talking about. Who's going to be in a position to play for a title? Who is going to be right there if chaos should happen? But there's fun stuff across the board. All of this week's big boy games are on Saturday, including with a pretty good slate at noon, starting on ABC. Texas at Arkansas. I did not.
Number 3, Texas.
Thank you. I didn't.
Hmm.
I'm
You
not
didn't
gonna.
update your rankings.
I did not update my rankings. I left them blank intentionally. Number 3, Texas, at Arkansas. The Horns are favored by 13.5 points. The AJ Fun Index is 57.5. Just to reiterate, guys, we are using the playoff rankings from this point forward through the end of the regular season, and they updated those late on Tuesday. The show didn't start till 8 or 8:30 or something like that.
Yeah,
So
because of basketball.
I've filled in some of these, but I apparently didn't get all of them. So, oh
I
well.
I got them, so we're good.
Sweet, sweet.
Um,
What do you think about this game?
well, so like my first note here is like trap game for the Horns
Hmm.
question mark.
Hmm.
I mean, their last two remaining games on the schedule are Kentucky. Okay,
Hmm.
fine. But then you got the huge showdown game at Texas A&M, which
Yes.
the more we get into the latter weeks of the season here, the more that's looking like it could be a potential play-in game for the
Hmm.
SEC title.
Hmm.
Um, After Arkansas like had the huge upset win over Tennessee, like we keep calling the Hogs
Hmm.
in
Okay.
games like this, particularly when they are playing at home,
Hmm.
and they just keep letting us down.
Yeah.
You know, we
Yeah.
called them against LSU and it didn't happen. We called them against Ole Miss and it didn't happen, right? And so it's like if Arkansas can get its ground game going, at least on paper, they have the offense to keep up with Texas. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I just don't see it this week. I think the line is kind of silly in this game.
Hmm.
I think Arkansas can absolutely cover, but this just feels like a Texas win to me. I don't think this is a trap game. I think Texas wins on the road here.
Okay. The cool thing about this game is I have childhood memories, excuse me, of watching this game
Yeah,
with family friends who are from Arkansas and went to Arkansas. And this is back when both teams were in the Southwest Conference.
right. It's the
Uh,
Southwest rivalry. Yeah.
Lou Holtz was Arkansas's head coach. And those games were competitive. Arkansas was really good at that point. Often playing. There was a season I want to say in the late 70s where they spoiled a title run by Oklahoma late in the season, when Oklahoma had been rolling. Hi, Charlie. Um, I don't think this game will be competitive. Actually, I think Arkansas can hang with Texas for a bit, um, unless of course the Longhorns come out absolutely flat, which is a possibility. Arkansas played well early in the season, and I think all three of us had them sort of pegged as this team is going to be a pest in the SEC.
Hmm.
Um, Recently, as you mentioned, though, it feels like they've lost their way a little bit. They got absolutely buried by Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Lost to a Mississippi State team that has not been good in recent weeks. Um, I think Texas wins this one. Could be interesting. Could be close for a while. But I think this is a Longhorns win. At noon on ESPN, down the street from my house, number 20 Clemson at Pitt. The Tigers are favored by 10. The AJ Fun Index is 54.5 points. Um, which team do you believe? That's sort of the whole premise of my
Yeah.
notes here. Which team do you believe, Carla?
I don't know who I believe here because one of the things and I'm not sure I believe the playoff rankings here either because
Yeah.
I don't fully understand how Pitt fell entirely out.
Hmm.
Um I mean, yeah, they lost two straight, but
Yeah.
SMU is contending for the conference title.
Hmm.
And Virginia has been one of those teams that's been meddling all season, right? So
Yes,
like they're a
absolutely.
team that's like middle of the pack that's just kind of messing things up in the ACC this year. Um so I don't fully understand how a two-loss Pitt team fell all the way from 18 completely out. That just doesn't when there are three lost teams in there that have worse losses than Pitt has. I just
Yes.
that doesn't compute for me.
Hmm.
The big challenge for Pitt in this game will be its secondary because the Panthers rank in near the bottom of the conference in pass defense, and that's going to be a problem going up against this Clemson offense.
Hmm.
But that being said, the Clemson passing attack is not the best one that Pitt has faced this season. That would
No.
belong to Syracuse, and
Hmm.
the Panthers handled them easily,
Yes.
right? So I don't know what it is in this one. I don't know who I trust more. maybe AJ put the thought into my head a couple weeks ago when we were discussing the potential ACC chaos if everybody ended up with two losses and how
Hmm.
that was plausible.
Hmm.
One of the things that needed to happen was Pitt beating Clemson.
Hmm. That's true.
And I think the ACC is going to take on the role of the Big 12 here. It's just a gut feeling for me.
Okay.
I don't know. I just feel like this is a game that for some reason Pitt's going to win. I don't know why. I'm not fully confident in that Pitt offense,
Hmm.
but I'm also not confident in Clemson at all.
Okay.
So Pitt at home just because it's the ACC.
Okay. Okay. I just these both of these teams have followed sort of interesting paths through the season. Clemson, of course, got buried by Georgia in the opener, but since then they went on a streak where they looked, from solid to unstoppable, depending on the weekend.
Yeah.
Until they hosted Louisville 2 weeks ago,
Right.
and they Clemsoned as hard as a Clemsoning ever Clemsoned. Um,
It was like 2018, 2019
yeah,
Clemsoning good.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Pitt, uh, they're equally hard to figure out. As you said, they look like a world beater at the end of September. They were figuring out how to win games. They were winning games that they were supposed to win. They had comebacks on the road. They had a comeback at home against a rival. Um, and then we're in the middle of a 2-game losing streak against SMU and Virginia. Um, this is like a battle of the eye test, and this is what I referenced. Who do you believe?
Yeah.
Which team do you believe? I'm gonna give the edge to Clemson. I would not be surprised to see Pitt win this game. I really would not. Um, but I think at this point, I believe Dabo and the Tigers did just a little bit more than Pat Narduzzi and the Panthers, and I think Clemson is going to win the game down the road from my house on Saturday afternoon. Also at noon, big nude, in fact, on the Fox network. Utah at number 17, Colorado. The Buffs are favored by 10. The AJ Fund Index is a not so fun 47.5 points. Um, I it, you want to write off Utah, but then the thing happened last weekend, and this could be interesting. What do you think?
It could be interesting, yeah, and it's because of that Utah defense, right? And
Hmm.
I think that's why your fun index is as low as it is when you have
Yeah.
a prolific offense like the Buffs on the other sideline, right?
Hmm.
But I mean, if you look at just the schedule, the Utes are free falling at this
Yes.
point. They start 4-0 and then lose five straight,
Yep.
and then uh, uh, say what you want to say about last weekend in the Holy War, right? And I already mentioned this with the Utah offense. I mean, they didn't score in the second half.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's a problem. But here's why the Utes actually have a shot for the upset here and making this the first opportunity for a Big 12 buffet on Saturday.
Hmm.
This is the best pass and scoring defense that Colorado has faced all season.
Hmm.
This is a legit test for the Buffs on going up against a really, really good defense. The challenge here for me is the fact that Utah really has no offense of which to speak at
Right.
this point. If they had even a little bit of offense, I would give some really serious thought to taking Utah in this one
Hmm.
because that
Hmm.
Utah defense is really, really good. But I don't know. I think they can slow down that Buffs offense, but I don't think they're going to be able to slow them down enough because of how much their offense, the Utes offense is struggling here. So
Hmm.
I think Utah makes this game really, really interesting, but Shadur and the Buffs win at home.
Okay. Okay. You guys know I've been a fan of Kyle Willingham's Utah teams.
Yeah.
In that they have been playing Big Ten football. This year, the defense is there, but there really isn't any offense to speak of. There have been glimpses, including last weekend's game against BYU in the Holy War. But the Utes are just that they don't have it this season. Uh, to the degree that it's possible for a team coached by Deion Sanders to have a quiet season, I would argue that the Buffs have quietly put together
Yeah.
a solid season. And they actually they control their own destiny at this point. This was a point that was made on the ranking show that was on earlier tonight. You win out. You face BYU in the Big 12 title game. You win that game, and suddenly you're
Colorado's in the
you're you're
playoff.
you're playing for the whole thing, and
Yeah.
it's an interesting. No one's going to favor them to win the title, but with the offense that Colorado can put on the field, um, with the exceptional talent that they have, that's a scary matchup for anybody. Um,
Yeah.
but that process starts on Saturday in Boulder with a win at home over the Utes, which I think they will get. Um, the Jefferson Pilot game, 4:15 on the SEC network. I did write down the rankings for this one. Number 23, Mizzou. How Missouri is still ranked, I have no idea.
I don't get. Yeah.
At number 20, South Carolina. The Gamecocks are favored by 12. The AJ Fun Index is 44.5. Does South Carolina expose the Tigers for once and for all this season, this on Saturday?
I I think they do, and here's why. Because like my notes here say this is not last year's Mizzou team by
Mhm.
any stretch. I mean, yes, they're 7-2, but their wins haven't necessarily been impressive, right? If you go through and you look at Mizzou's wins, they beat Oklahoma by 7, Auburn by 4, Vandy in double overtime, Boston College by 6. Those are
Mhm.
not the dominating wins that we saw this Missouri team put up last year, right?
No.
Gamecocks, meanwhile, they're the meddlers in
Hmm.
the SEC. They are
Hmm.
taking on the role of the Georgia Techs and the Virginias in the SEC. Um, convincing wins in their last 3 games over Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Vandy.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
they're playing at home, which is a historically difficult place to play.
Hmm.
Because it will start to get dark by the end of this game because
Yep.
we're no longer in daylight savings. So you're going to end up with and Columbia is a tough as heck place to play once it gets dark and they start
Yep.
doing all that fun stuff. So, I think the Gamecocks win this game fairly convincingly at
Okay.
home. I think the Gamecocks are the better team here this year. Mizzou just isn't quite there this year. They're going to be bowl eligible. They're going to be just fine. They're going to have um and get themselves a decent bowl game. But
Hmm.
no, I think this is a South Carolina win at home.
Okay. Okay. This feels a little bit to me like the late season run that Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks and Spencer Rattler put together a couple seasons ago when they
Hmm.
late in the year they put up 63 on Tennessee. They went to Clemson, won their rivalry game on the road. They just they're peaking at the right time again.
Yeah.
You went through the end of the schedule, what they've been able to do. I think they will. I offered you a leading question at the beginning of this game. They will expose Missouri once and for all this season, and that's and Missouri's had injuries to cope with, but I am a little confused as to why they are still ranked in the top 25. Gamecocks win, and I don't think it's especially close. Before we move on to our next game, Buffalo has just scored under 2 minutes. They just completed a 2-point conversion. The game against Ball State is tied at 45. AJ, buddy, we miss you. Um,
Yeah. We got
because
90
I
points on a
hope
Tuesday. I love it.
I hope you're listening somehow or something. Yeah, 143 left, and Ball State gets the ball back here, and we'll see what's going to happen at 7 p.m. Saturday on ESPN. We have the Sun Devils of Arizona State at the Power Cats of Kansas State. Kansas State is favored by 9. The AJ Fund Index is 50.5 points. Carla, what do you think?
So I asked for this game to be included because
Mhm.
to me this week this is your entree course of the Big 12 buffet. This is the game that I think
Okay.
has the best possibility for a complete and total upset here because State is the team that has given the meddlers of
Mhm.
they were the meddlers in the Pac-12. Now they're the meddlers in the Big 12, right? They're
Good point.
playing that role really well in two
Yep.
different conferences. They're going on the road with an opportunity to create even more chaos after K-State last week inexplicably lost at Houston.
Yes.
Yeah.
Houston,
Um,
we have a problem.
yeah, yeah. So, and they're the last place team in the conference, right? So
Mhm.
the Devils are the meddlers. They're not winning overly impressively, but they're getting it
But
done.
they're winning. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know me, I love my Power Cats. And so I
Oh,
see this as a get right game for them. I'm going to take K-State here. Arizona State actually has a pretty brutal slate left. The game that everybody should circle right now, next weekend, BYU at Arizona State. That game is
okay.
super, super, super dangerous
Yes.
for both
Yes.
teams in that. So circle that game now. So Arizona State has a brutal slate left at home against BYU, and then they play rival Arizona in the Commonwealth Cup.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so that's an interesting slate left. I say K-State makes this a get right game, but this is another one of those. It would absolutely not stun me if the Sun Devils win this one on the road.
Okay. Okay. Ball State is already at midfield, about 15 yards away from the little field goal line that you want to get to, with just over a minute left. So, looking at this game, will BYU falter? Will Colorado fade away? If there is chaos at the top of the Big 12, K-State will be right in the mix for a berth in the conference title game. But wait, so would the Sun Devils. Both
Right.
teams are 4-2 in the conference. One could argue that Arizona State is the hotter team at the moment, coming in with 2 straight wins for the last 5. It's true that the Kansas State has also won 4 of the last 5, but the win, the loss at Houston, that feels like a crusher. That feels like a momentum stopper. And I'm gonna go with the momentum over the home team here. Because I feel like Kansas State just hasn't been quite right this season. So I'm picking the Sun Devils to win this one, and that sets up a super intriguing match, as you said, next week.
Yeah.
At 7:30 p.m. on ABC. This is perhaps the biggest of the big boy games next weekend. This weekend. Number 7 Tennessee at number 12 Georgia. Georgia is favored by 10. Huh. Of the AJ Fun Index is 48.5. Carla, what do you think?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, it's just
I
one
might have a
of like
quarter here I can flip for you.
yeah, no, I mean, as we mentioned top of show, Georgia might be the most baffling team in the country this
Hmm.
year to,
Hmm.
to absolutely dominate Texas and then need a late push to beat Florida and then lose emphatically at Ole Miss.
Hmm.
Which Georgia team are we gonna get this weekend? I don't know. Um, what we know about Tennessee is that Nico is good.
Yeah.
The Vols have won 4 straight and would love absolutely nothing more than a shot at the SEC title game, which is what a win here would likely do for them,
Yep.
pending an impressive Diego Pavia sighting in the final game of the season. So there is
Bum,
still a
bum, bum,
chance
bum.
here for our beloved Diego Pavia to mess the SEC title game up.
Do
Um,
it.
which would be so much fun. But really, when you look at the schedule, Tennessee plays a cupcake next weekend. I think it's the Citadel.
Hmm.
They play a cupcake next weekend, and then they have Vanderbilt, and that's it. So if you win
Yeah.
this game, if you take care of business, Tennessee has punched its ticket to the SEC title game.
Hmm.
I don't know though. This is a game that This is a game though that Georgia just wins.
Hmm.
And especially because they are playing at home between the hedges. Like so as much as I think that Tennessee has the momentum and they definitely have the opportunity here,
Hmm.
this just feels like a game that Kirby's going to have them up for.
Okay.
Taking the primetime slate, Georgia's going to figure out a way to win this game at home. And that actually makes the chaos at the top of the SEC even more deep. Because now you have the opportunity for Texas A&M to be a play-in game
Right.
for the SEC title. And suddenly, I hate to say it, friends, Alabama's back in the mix. If Tennessee
Yeah.
loses this game, Alabama is back in the mix to potentially make it into the SEC title game. So Georgia wins this game and we get SEC chaos.
Hmm.
That's what I'm going for.
Okay, and that's a totally legit thing to cheer for. Um, I wonder if there's still hope in Georgia, and that's sort of reinforced by the rankings that were released tonight. which casts doubt on that. Georgia is the
Yeah.
first team out in the new brackets, while the Vols at 7, I think, would host Notre Dame in the opening round. So, and that would be a fun game, boy.
Hmm.
I'm curious what Kirby manages to do this week. Generally, he is able to get Georgia up and paying attention for a meaningful game, and this is a meaningful game. This week, he can also legitimately say that Georgia's backs are against the wall, and whatever other cliches you want to use. Um, I was super big on Tennessee at the beginning of the season, as you guys might recall. And the Vols are kind of getting back to looking like that team, especially scoring defense, which ranks fifth in the country. You don't you don't you think about offense with Tennessee, but the Vols defense has been fantastic this year. There apparently is some question about whether or not Nico is going to be physically ready to play in this game. And that's my caveat here.
Yeah.
If he's ready to go, I'm going to pick Tennessee in this game. I think they have uh, I think they have kind of a dream season on the line. And that's going to be motivation enough to do that. If Nico cannot play, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But that is I'm picking Tennessee in this game. I'm picking a lot of visiting underdogs here, but that's how that goes. Hi, Charlie. Um, we finished with a game that AJ would be thrilled about, I think.
Yes.
10:15 on ESPN. Kansas at BYU. What is BYU's rank for the
BYU is
latest?
number 6.
6. That is a significant move up from the week before, as I recall. Um,
Hmm.
BYU is favored by 3 in this game. The AJ Fund Index is 55.5 points. My cat is not letting me see my notes, but Carla, what do you think about this one?
This feels like the
Speaking of buffets, what do you
speaking
think?
of buffets. Yeah. This feels like an opportunity when you look at this game, you're like, ooh, this is a classic letdown situation
Mhm. Yeah.
for the Cougs coming off of a huge rivalry win last weekend, looking to punch their ticket to the Big 12 title game, and here comes Kansas, which is not necessarily at the top of the Big 12, right? This is
Mhm.
not the Kansas team that we've seen in recent years.
Hmm.
The line here is a little puzzling.
Okay.
To only be a 3-point favorite at home against a team now, yes, Kansas just knocked off Iowa State. Um,
And
and they do
convincingly.
have the yeah, and they do have the ability to put together a pretty good game. So this is a dangerous game, no doubt. But to me, BYU is starting to prove itself to be the class of the conference this year.
Mhm.
So if I'm a Cougar fan, as I mentioned, I am much more nervous about next week going on the road to Arizona State. That
Mhm.
game should be pretty terrifying if you're a Cougar fan.
Yeah.
Um, just because Arizona State is a really good football team.
Mhm.
That's a super dangerous game. This one I think is close,
Mhm.
but I think BYU gets the win at home. If this game was in Lawrence, I might couch it a little bit differently, but this game's at home for the Cougs. I think they're gonna win this game.
Okay. Okay. Um, Brigham Young has played with its hair on fire for the entire season, including last weekend. We've talked about it when they eked by Utah in the rivalry game. Kansas is interesting. It's clearly not the team that we've sort of become used to over the last couple of seasons when the Jayhawks have been respectable to good. I remember cheering. I don't know if it was last year or the year before when actively cheering them on to get bowl eligible.
Yeah.
Um, but a little bit like South Carolina, they are peaking. It feels like they are sort of peaking at the end of the season. Things are coalescing for them. Uh, Jalen Daniels has been inconsistent. 13 TDs to 9 picks on the season so far. but when he's on, he can be as dynamic as any quarterback in the country.
Mhm.
It's just he does not seem to have that every week. I just feel like the Cougars are it's a silly thing to say, but the Cougars are a team of destiny. I don't see them hanging that up against the Jayhawks. Stay up if you can. I will not. Sorry. But this game has promise to be a fun watch. But I agree. I think BYU wins this one at home, and then we've got an even bigger game to talk about next weekend. Boys and girls, you can hear the Carla and Crappy Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and a variety of other podcasting hosts. You can watch the show on YouTube and or the show's Facebook page, or watch us both places. That would be awesome. You may recall from a year ago that you can read us on our Substack. If you like us, please subscribe, rate, and review. If you don't, mind your own damn business. And be sure to come back next week to see exactly how wrong we were. I believe that Buffalo and Ball State are going to, yeah, they are starting overtime right now. Tied at 45. Ball State was not able to kind of get into field goal range to win the game. So they have the first possession and overtime. And if we finish up the before they do, go watch the highlights of this one because it's insane. Carla, what final thoughts do you have?
Just some quick notes here. I
Please.
I didn't mention Penn State number 4 at Purdue, which we've already talked about, and it's our 28.5-point favorite on the road. I'm like you were last week. I want to see a dominating win here.
Yeah.
And maybe try out a little bit more of that playbook, get things ready to, it's at this point, unless something absolutely ridiculous happens, the Nittany Lions are in the playoff one way or another.
Exactly.
And so this is an opportunity to kind of test out your playbook a little bit, maybe test some more of those interesting goal line plays that we saw last weekend against Washington. So that's what I'm looking for here to get a really nice win on the road. That game's at 3:30 on CBS. The other game that I noted here, just because it's intriguing, number 22 LSU at Florida. That game's at 3:30 on ABC. How far will LSU fall? After,
absolutely.
I mean, that's kind of how do the Tigers respond after getting absolutely thumped at home? This feels like an opportunity for them to just go beat the brakes off of a Gator team that it didn't put up a fight last week against Texas, which was pretty shocking. Also, if you're not paying attention, this is a really random side note, but if you're not paying attention to speaking of student journalists, what the student journalists are doing at the independent Florida Alligator, go pay attention to what they are doing, because they are breaking stories left and right down there that are impacting the athletic program at Florida. So kudos to the kids down there who are doing some really awesome work. Robert Morris, my AJ and my alma mater, is at Central Connecticut State on Saturday, as we used to call this at Dallas Jackson. This is for you, C-Con Sta, as we called them. C-Con Sta. They are. That's a battle for second place. That game's at noon, and you can actually watch it. That game is on NEC Front Row.
Nice.
Bob lost pretty dramatically at Duquesne on Saturday in the city game.
Saw that.
So this is just a game for second place at this point, but these two teams are tied for second, so you'll see some shuffling there. So this is a key win for Bob, and I'm putting this in here just for AJ's sake because he is not here.
Please.
We have 2 games this weekend with a fun index of 72.5 points.
I saw the one, and I was going to mention this, but go ahead.
Yeah, and those 2 games are North Texas at MEEP, UTSA. That game's at 8 Eastern on Friday on ESPN2. And the other game is actually with a ranked team, number 18 Wazoo at New Mexico. That game's at 9:30 Eastern on FS1 on Saturday. Both those games have a fun index of 72.5 points. If you like points, watch those games.
Gotta watch those. And not, I mean, you know what you're doing on Friday. right now. Thanks to Carla. And I missed that one. I was going to mention Wazoo in New Mexico because of the potential for fun stuff there. But I appreciate you that you notice those. You did a nice job of covering the stuff that we're looking for. I have basically I've mentioned to you already. OU hosts Eastern on Wednesday night. This is me right now mentally telling you to watch OU and Eastern at 7 p.m. on Wednesday. So when that happens, and you listen to the show later, you'll understand why it happened, because I told you to watch that game. And I might have suggested that you cheer for my Bobcats. So that's the thing. Ohio State plays on Little Nude, I guess. It's a noon game. So on the Big Ten Network, this is the one game that the Bucks get on BTN this season. And this is at Northwestern. It is not at the little Lakeside Stadium, which would have been really cool, but it's even cooler because it's being played at Wrigley.
Yeah.
Kelly and I tried to figure out how to do this game, but with both of us having new jobs and limited vacation time, and it did not work. And I am going to be eating my liver at noon on Saturday because I am not there.
Yeah.
But it should be a cool thing. Interesting. I don't. I'm hoping for another shutout. Actually, to be honest, they don't. When Northwestern does not score, they averaged 18 points a game.
Yeah.
They have one of the better rushing defenses in the conference. They're only giving up. It's top 20 in the country. They're only giving up 108 yards per game. So that's if I continue to look for kind of measuring stick stuff, I think a good day running the football in Wrigley Field in the friendly confines, that would make me happy. So that's what I'm going to be looking for on Saturday. Carla, this is like old times. Doing the two of us, just the original gang. I am glad you're here. I will report that Buffalo, in its first possession of overtime, scored a touchdown after holding Ball State to a field goal in the initial possession of overtime. Buffalo wins 51-48 over Ball State. As I said, AJ, we wish you were here. We really, really do. MACtion is the greatest thing ever. And
99 points on a Tuesday. That's incredible.
That is fantastic. The only thing better, Carla, is you. Thank you as always.
Yep, thank you as always
for being here, for doing all the things that you do. AJ, thank you. We will get your group of five report spliced into the show, and look forward to seeing you next week. And guys, thank you for reading, for watching, for listening, for doing all the things. We hope your team does well this weekend, unless you live in Ann Arbor. And we will see you back here next weekend. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.